Alright YouTube, it's going to be part 2 of my power steering conversion on my 66 C10. If you haven't seen part 1, go check that video out. Basically on that one I removed the manual steering box and installed the new power steering box unit from CPP. So if you haven't seen that, go check that video out. Today we're going to be installing the power steering pump, pulley and bracket assembly on the actual engine itself, and then once that's done and in place, then we'll start routing the hoses and see what we got to do there. So without further delay, I'm gonna go ahead. I got the pump out, I got the bracket out of the bag and box. We'll take a quick look at that. There's a couple of fittings that come in the kit as well, show the instructions, and then we'll pretty much start tearing into this, which is pretty simple. I just got to remove the belt, and then I got to take the old single groove crank pulley out because I got a double groove now that's going back in it. So enough chit chat and let's get into this. Alright, so here's the instructions to install the power steering pump and bracket. This is for a small block Chevy. Got pretty nice detailed instructions. I already read them, already got pictures, so that's always nice to see. On the other side it's got the different variations, which these is the crank pulley, and that's the power steering pulley double groove. I think that's the single groove version. I don't know what that one is. Might be a different version as well. But at any rate, that's what I have. That's probably the scenario we'll be using there. And it also gives you the different part numbers you'll need if you're doing a long water pump. There's the adjusting bar. There's the lower bracket there. Everything's all painted nice. Brand new power steering pump. Looks pretty nice. That's my GoPro camera turning off. Spacer and bolts. Looks like on the water pump we'll have to be removing the lower right bolt if you're facing the motor and installing this. And then a couple of fittings. I'm thinking these go to the steering box, but I'm not 100% sure. And then of course, like I showed y'all in the first video, there's the double groove steering pulley. So got the belt off, got the single groove crank pulley off. So this is the one we'll be installing, dual groove. Yeah, not too bad. I had to drop the dust cover so I could stop the flywheel from spinning when I was trying to break that big bolt loose. So I'm gonna go ahead and install the crank pulley, get that put on there, get that buttoned up, and then we'll go ahead and start assembling all this stuff. I was reading the instructions. There's two options you can mount the power steering. There's a high mount, which is this position right here, and there's a low mount. Well, I tested this one out first just to see if it'd work, and it doesn't. The pump comes in contact with the lower alternator bracket, so I'm gonna have to run this position. Kind of already loosely test fitted. It should work out okay. So that's the one we're going to be doing. There's 4 holes on the pump itself. Comes with 2, I think these are 3/8 studs, maybe 5/16. They do have an Allen hex head inside, so you can use a 3/16 Allen wrench to install it. You'll need to install, according to instructions, looks like you need to install one here. And then there's another one. This is for the adjusting tensioner. Looks like, according to the picture, it goes here. Just a little snug there. And that's it. As you can see, there's a stud on the back. So that's where the one mounting plate shows you right there. And the instructions. That's where your back plate goes, right there. A little washer. And see these little skinny nuts. That's what you should use. I guess on this one you could use a big one. There's a lot more studs sticking out. And then the front bracket, same position. Washer. Skinny nut on this. Once that's done, leave that just finger tight. So we'll have to move these around to get those through. So here's the other one. And you can kind of guesstimate where it's going to be in position. And then go ahead and gently snug everything. So now this should officially bolt to the block. And then obviously there's your deal there. And you put another this washer and a skinny nut, another skinny nut there. This is pretty much ready to be installed. Like I stated earlier, you will have to remove the lower bolt on the right side of the water pump if you're facing the engine. And if I'm not mistaken, if you remove that bolt, coolant's going to leak out. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that one bolt right there leaks coolant. If it doesn't, we're good to go. Remove the old bolt, stick all this together, put in, and then, you know, tighten everything down and go from there. If it does leak, I'll have to drain the coolant down some to you know, get it below, obviously, to get it below the block to where when I take that bolt out, it doesn't come squirting out. So, and I don't want to make a mess doing this, so I'm going to check that real quick. Alright, I checked that lower right water pump bolt. I got it all the way out and it started letting coolant out. So instead of draining the coolant, what I'm going to try to do, I think I can do it without making too much of a mess. I already got some pig mat laid out to catch any coolant that spills. What I'm going to do is pull that bolt out real quick and slide this in. I already got some thread sealant on here. I really like the ARP brand, especially when you're doing cylinder head bolts and water pump bolts. I really like this stuff. But that's a little bit harder to get. You should be able to get this locally. I also use this as well, and I really like Loctite. So what I'm going to do, like I said, I got everything kind of, got some pig mat laid out. What I'm going to do is pull that bolt out and then slide this one in real quick and then start threading it in. Once I get some threads going, it should stop the coolant from leaking, and then I can go ahead and run it all the way in, leaving it slightly loose so I can pivot this, whatever I need to do when I get it put together. So I'm gonna go do that and we'll go from there. Alright, so let's see if I can do this and be quick like a cat. Quick like a cat. Ooh! Came a flowing. Came a flowing. There's gonna be minimal cleanup there, but one way I'd kind of rather do that than draining the coolant down. There it goes. Sometimes you gotta wiggle these bolts around to get them to start going really good. Alright, so I got a socket here now. I need a little ease in that Allen wrench. I don't like the way that one feels at all. That one's getting tighter before it even gets tight. That's no good. That's no good. I think what I need to do is pull all this back out, the pump. I think there's something going on with these threads. I need to chase them out. There might be some trash. Some threads might have been rolled from the previous owner, whoever had this engine before. So let me take all this back out, fix that, and then we'll put it together. Look at all that trash that was in there. That was why that bolt wasn't going in there. It didn't feel good when I was tightening it up. It was getting real tight before it was bottomed out, so It's always good to chase these threads out. I should have done that before I started, but no big deal. We've already done it, so I'm going to clean that bolt out with some brake cleaner, and we'll try this again. All right. Let me get this thing threaded in there as well. So far, that feels pretty good. It's spinning on there by hand a lot better than it did before. Sorry if my hands are in the way. I can't see the camera from here. Now they feel a lot better. So tech tip. Make sure your bolts, chase your bolts with a thread chaser, not a tap, a thread chaser. Clean them out really good. Blow them out with compressed air if you need to. And you should be good to go. And if the threads are damaged, you know, somebody cross-threaded something, then you may have to use a tap at that point. But all right, so now I'm about to install the pulley. They put a rubber band around the keyway. So what I would recommend, because this thing isn't jammed in there very tight, I would recommend having that facing up so you have gravity holding it in place while you're trying to put this pulley on. Oh, there we go. Worked out good. Do another 7/8 wrench. You can just use both opened in. And if you have your like fan shroud and all that stuff off, you could probably get an impact on this, but I'm okay. I can do this by hand, no big deal. Yeah, that's really not budging anymore, so I'll call that done. And you can still, on your jam nut there, you can still get a wrench, as you can see, and you can still adjust that. It's gonna have to be an opened end, but that's no big deal. I may have to get a dual water pump pulley. What I'm looking at right here. Check this out. Yep, I think that's what I'm gonna have to do. I'm gonna have to get a water pump pulley. CPP does make one, a double groove pulley. So that looks like that's what I'm gonna have to do, because that's not gonna work. So I got the hoses already installed. They're just mocked up right now. They're not tight. And as you can see in there, there's that 45-degree fitting goes to the pump, and then the 90 goes to the box. And then here's the return. They give you plenty of extra hose to, once you finally figure out how long you need it, then you can cut the excess off. However, looks like there's gonna be some trimming in this area here. As you can see, that little drop down edge right there needs to be trimmed at minimum, because it's hitting the hose, or would be hitting the hose. And then more than likely we're gonna have to use some kind of hose clamp to push, to hold that away from the steering shaft itself, because right now it's kind of touching it. I'm gonna mark where I need to trim, and somewhere in this area. And if I think I need to just go up a little higher, then I'll do that as well. But for now, I'm gonna go ahead and mark it where I think it needs to be trimmed and go from there. All right, so that took a little time, but I got it done. As you can tell, you see what I had to do. Basically, I had to disconnect the steering column shaft from the intermediate shaft. And I even took the intermediate shaft off because I could not get any cutting device up in this fender well area. I don't know if you can tell, the only thing I really cut was that drop down edge, which was right up in there. So once I did that, everything was good. Kind of radius the edges a little bit. There's no sharp edges. It's kind of same thing right up in there. So now the hose has no sharp edges when it comes across there. So now you can see that. So yeah, it's basically just gonna be resting on this curved spot right here, which is no big deal. And then I've been messing around with hose clamp placement. And somewhere right in this area, I'm gonna probably drill a little 1/4-inch hole and mount that clamp. And I'll figure out whether I do another clamp for the return hose or maybe just zip tie it to this. I'll have to see all that here in a minute. mark me a hole, drill it for that clamp. Once all that's figured out and finalized, I'll show you what it looks like, and we'll go from there. All right, so it's a new day. Had to make an early morning Summit racing run because I needed to get that double groove water pump pulley. It's another CPP brand. There's the part number if you're interested, because the single groove was no longer going to work in this application. I already got the pulley installed. I want to make sure everything fit and cleared. And it does. So see that water pump and that crank line up really good. And then now, especially that rear groove lines up really good with the front groove of the water pump and the crankshaft. See, before the rear groove didn't line up with the power steering, so it wasn't going to work. And then now I have to get a belt for the alternator so it'll line up with that rear groove of the water pump. So now it'll be a 2-belt drive system. One belt will go around the water pump rear groove and the alternator, and then the second belt will go around the front groove of the crank, rear groove of the power steering, and then front groove of the water pump. And that should drive everything, and everything should be okay. I have a bunch of scrap belts. Unfortunately, come look at all the ones I got. At all these belts, plus the 2 on the table, none of them fit. They were too big or too small. So, what you can do is take a scrap belt, wrap around, go ahead and cut it in half, and then wrap around the pulleys you're trying to drive, get as close as you think is possible, and then cut it. And then you can go to the parts store with this right here, and then buy whatever's close to this, and then maybe go 1 or 2 sizes big and 1 or 2 sizes small. That way when you return, hopefully you've bought the right pulley, or I mean the right belt. So I did this one for the crank, water pump, and power steering. I'm going to use this belt here to measure for the water pump and alternator. So if you've never done this, really simple. And you don't even really need a drive belt to do this. Just makes it a little easier. You want to make sure first that you're not in a maxed out setting. And 2, take that old scrap belt, or you can use a piece of string, piece of rope, shoestring, whatever you got. Take some kind of marker, pencil, pen, something you can actually see right there. And once you do that, take it off. Cut it. Recheck it, make sure it looks like it as close as it needs to be. Go from there. I cut a little bit too much off, but that's alright, because we're going to buy 2 or 3 sizes. That way, when we come back, hopefully we nail it and we get the right one. So this is what I came up with as far as clamping. When I went to get that water pump pulley from Summit Racing, I found these clamps, and they make several different inside diameters. So this is what I came up with. The clamp does come with some like machine screw to hold it together. See that focus? There you go. But it's like a really small screw. So what I did was enlarge it, because I originally started one of these style clamps right here that's holding my brake lines, and I used a 1/4-20 hole. But when you use 2 together, when you used it together, kind of similar to that, it just kind of looked cumbersome. So I didn't really like the way it looked. So I got one of these, enlarged the hole to a 1/4 inch to accommodate the hole I've already drilled in the fender well. And I think that looks much better, and it's working out great. And I got one more clamp. I did not modify it. I'll show you what it looks like. And there it is right there. You can see that machine screw. Really nice little piece. It's only $7 from Summit Racing. Yeah, you got the new belts on. I pretty much nailed the sizes on those. I only have to return one out of the 3 I bought. So I got real lucky on that. I've already ran it, cycled it, checked for leaks. Everything's good to go. So now the only thing I need to do is put the wheels on it, clean them up, put the wheels on, set this on the ground and see what kind of resistance it has when you steer left to right. That's the only one thing I can't really feel right now, is because there's no body weight on the actual tires. So it feels pretty good right now, but I want to see what it feels like when it's on the ground. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that and go from there. Guys, what can I say? It is a night and day difference from the manual steering to this. The steering is extremely positive. I love it. I mean, it's very responsive. I wouldn't say it's rack and pinion responsive, but it's very close. Very close. You touch the wheel one way or the other and it's moving that direction. Very pleased with the install. Everything worked out okay. There's a few minor things I need to take care of. One of them being I need to trim that bumper bracket. I think it's a little bit I need to trim off here, and it should clear the steering box and be able to mount back up. The last thing I need to do, and one of the most important things, is I need to do a front end alignment, because this thing's been pulling to the right for a while, but I've been waiting because I wanted to get this power steering kit installed, and once that was done, everything buttoned up and everything works good, then go get a front end alignment. Because once that front end alignment's done, then everything on this truck is new and been replaced since I've had it. So should last me a long time, hopefully. I have no issues. Yeah, I'm pretty much gonna call on this one, guys. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. That way you can keep up to date with everything I'm doing on my C10, because I got a lot more projects coming in the future. So like, subscribe, and until then, thanks for watching.